our practice. Just take a couple deep breaths, allowing ourselves to arrive here tonight, letting go of anything that happened today or anything that needs to happen later, and just be fully present. Maybe start to notice any sounds or smells that you're feeling or sensing in your space. And just let those vibrations exist within and around you. Coming into the body, rooting through our seat, sitting up nice and tall through the spine, out the top of the crown, just like a little string coming out the top of your head. A slight tuck of the chin, softening the space between the eyes, softening the jaw, just letting the tongue float away from the top of your mouth. Let the shoulders draw away heavy from the ears. Feel the elbows pull towards the mat. And start to soften through the hips and the knees and the ankles. Let the body fully surrender and soften. And working further inward as we bring awareness into our breath. Noticing the rise and fall of the chest as you breathe in and you breathe out. Notice the air as it touches the nostrils and as it exits. Now is a good time to set an intention for your practice this evening. I've chosen to go with the intention tonight of self-grace, just being graceful, forgiving, honest with ourselves. We're moving into a new practice. We might do things tonight that we've never done. Maybe it'll be a review, maybe it won't. Just honoring wherever your body is, be graceful to yourself. Listen to your body carefully. And just work within the limits of how you've arrived here tonight. There's nothing you need to be or need to do. Just arrive as you are and give grace to yourself. Bringing one hand to the chest and one hand to the belly, we'll start to tap into our three-part yogic breathing. Breathing in, filling up the belly like a balloon, ribs and the chest. Exhale out of the chest, ribs, and empty the belly completely. Take 2 to 3 more rounds of this breath on your own. And then meeting together on your next exhale. with a normal breath. Bringing hands to the lap. We'll make our way into a tabletop pose over hands and knees as you're ready in a way that's comfortable for you. Shoulders are stacked over wrists, hips over knees, toes can be untucked. Gaze in between the hands, pulling that belly button into the spine. On an inhale, drop the belly, lift the gaze, finding a cow pose. If you want to hold for a breath or two here to just feel that openness through the heart and the throat. Next, exhale, round the back, ears between the biceps, finding your cat. Maybe just shake it out here for a couple of breaths as we just start to get moving. And then inhale to cow. Exhale to cat. Start to just move with your own breath here. Warming up our spines. Three to five more breaths. Throughout this class, we're going to talk about taking vinyasa. Sometimes this is referred to as taking a chaturanga. And in this sequence, we give 4 options. We start with the most gentle and we work our way into the most advanced. Go ahead and find a neutral spine. So our very first option of this gentle vinyasa that you can take tonight would be inhaling to cow, exhaling to cat, and then drop the hips to the heels, find child's pose. Option 1 right here. Forehead to the mat. Go ahead and just rest in this resting pose for a few breaths. Vinyasa can be accessible for all levels of yogis. We all know that depending on the day, depends on where we are. So you're always welcome to take this gentle vinyasa. Remembering that you're always welcome to come back to this resting pose throughout our class. Inhale together, coming back into a tabletop pose. As we inhale, right leg lifts back and behind, toes stay pointed down, gaze can be lifted. Exhale, round the back, knee comes under the heart space. Inhale to extend, gaze lifts. Exhale to round. Option to root down through that right hand, lifting the left hand up. And exhale, knee to elbow. On the next extension, planting the hand down, keeping that right leg lifted. Gaze stays forward. We're going to drop that lifted leg to the back left side of our mat. Toes fall to the floor. Inhale to extend, lengthen through the spine. Exhale, twist to that extended leg. Take a look back behind there. Maybe noticing some opening through that right side body. Next, inhale together, gaze is forward, lift that leg, maybe lift it up as high as you can. And exhale, return to the mat. We'll do that same thing on the other side. Inhale together, left leg lifts, toes stay pointed down, leg is in line with the back. Exhale, round the back, knee to nose. Inhale, extend. Exhale to round. One more. Option here to root through that left hand, lifting the right, and exhale, knee to elbow. Extend, gaze lifts, exhale to round. Meeting on the extension, dropping the hand to the mat, and then dropping that lifted leg to the back right side of the mat. Inhale, lengthen to look forward. Exhale, twist to that right side, looking back at the extended foot. Next, inhale together, gaze lifts forward, lift that back leg up as high as you can. And exhale, return to tabletop. Tucking the toes, lifting the hips, and finding our first downward facing dog. Go ahead and pedal it out here. Take a couple bends into the knees. Spread those fingers, shake the head out, yes and no. Feet hip distance apart. Bring those heels down towards the floor. Tailbone lifts to the sky. Heart sinks towards the mat. Inhale together, right leg lifts. Toes stay pointed down. As we exhale, shoulders shift over wrists. We bring that knee high knee lifted underneath the heart space. Inhale to extend, leg lifts. Exhale, knee to the heart. Keeping that knee lifted off the mat. Inhale one more time. And exhale. This time we're just going to step that foot forward, finding a lunge. Lengthening through the spine. Hands can be planted here on the mat or under blocks. Shifting our weight back as we extend through the front leg. That back foot can turn out at a 45-degree angle as we find extended pyramid. So we're still nice hip distance in our stance. Our back foot is at a 45-degree angle out to the left side of the mat. Micro bend in the front knee, but mostly straight. Both of our hips are square to the top of our mat. Inhale to lengthen through the spine. And exhale to fold, keeping a flat back. Keeping that gaze lifted to the top of the mat. Exhale, drop that left knee to the floor and extend through the right leg as we find half monkey splits here on our right side. Again, option to use blocks. Front leg is extended with a micro bend. Both of our hips are nice and square to the top two corners of our mat. We could maybe play here with lifting up our toes and dropping them down, just kind of noticing the difference that we feel through that back right leg as we do that. One option isn't right versus wrong, it's just different. Whatever your body chooses here today. Maybe find some stillness as we lengthen through the spine. Exhale, keep a flat back as we fold forward. Gaze stays lifted. Micro bend through that front knee. As we breathe in, sending our weight forward, bending into that front knee. As we find a lunge. Inhale, arms up as we lift through our center body. And exhale, hands to the heart as we twist left elbow to the right knee. That back knee could stay down, or we could tuck the toes and lift up here if you choose. Hands could stay at the heart, or we could practice opening our wingspan, making sure that that front knee stacks over the front ankle. Exhale, drop the knee, bring the hands to heart if you've chosen those options. Lift up through the heart space. Hands come to frame that foot. As we step back into plank, we're going to go into option 2 of our vinyasa today. Dropping knees, chest, and chin. We know this one. Into worm. Inhale, baby cobra. Exhale, tuck the toes. Downward facing dog. So option 2 we know very well. Pedal it out, shake it out, downward dog. You're always welcome to come into a child's pose whenever you need. Inhale, left leg lifts, back and up. We're going to do our knee to nose planks here. Exhale, knee comes to the heart space, keeping the knee lifted. Shoulders over wrists. Inhale to lift. Exhale to lower. Inhale to lift. Exhale to step that foot through. Finding a lunge. Lengthen through the spine. Knee stacks over ankle. And shifting our weight back to that back foot as we straighten through that front leg. If you need to take a little half step forward, you can. So really important here. Hips stay square to the top of the mat. We're almost kind of pushing that right hip forward as we're pulling the left hip back. Micro bend in that knee. Inhale, lengthen through the back, out the crown. Exhale to fold, keeping that back flat. Gaze is lifted. Exhale, drop that right knee to the mat. Extend through that front left leg. Half monkey on this side. Play around with lifting those toes, pointing them down. Blocks here if you need. Hips are square. Micro bends. Inhale to lengthen. Exhale to fold. Find that edge where we start to feel lengthening. We don't want to feel any ripping or tearing. Give yourself some self-grace here. It's night 1 of vinyasa. We're not going to be perfect. We don't need to show up that way. Just be present in your practice today. Inhale, bend through that left knee. Remove any blocks as we lift our arms. Framing the ears with our arms. Exhale, hands through heart, twisting to the left, right elbow hinges to left knee. Options here to lift up off that back knee or open our wingspan. Front knee is stacked over ankle. Close the arms, drop the knee if you took those choices. Arms come back up overhead. And exhale to frame that front foot. Option 3 of vinyasa. From a plank pose, taking a drop in the knees and taking a high to low plank. Tuck those elbows into the ribs. Inhale. We're going to do a little bit more than a baby cobra this time, but we're going to keep our elbows bent. Really important. Our hips are still on the mat, so we need a bend in the elbows here. Tuck the toes, lift the hips. Downward facing dog. Gaze lifts as we jump, step, or float to the top of our mat. Find a forward fold. Micro bends through the knees. Feet are parallel. Maybe sway side to side. Whatever feels good here. Let that head hang. And one vertebrae at a time, we slowly make our way up to standing. How are we doing? Awesome. So throughout our practice tonight, I'm going to refer to bandhas a couple of times, and we're also going to talk about our breath. So in vinyasa, traditional breath style is ujjayi breathing. Ziggy Marley sings about it, if you catch that in a song. So it's also referred to as like ocean breath. So take one of your hands and just bring it in front of your face and just act like you're fogging a mirror. And then go ahead and do that with your lips closed. So it's that constriction. We're using that throat bandha to constrict the back of our throat. And we're creating a audible exhale and an audible inhale, both directions, creating that ocean breath. So whenever I remind you to come back into your breath tonight, find that Ujjayi breath. This helps us keep our moving meditation, create our point of focus. Let's chat a little bit about our Mula Bandha. This is our pelvic floor. So you see when people are kind of doing those floating things in yoga where they can keep their seat kind of lifted and float to the top of their mat. That comes from a lot of engagement through that Mula Bandha. So I want you to pretend you have a string pulling that Mula Bandha up all the way through the top of your head and just engage it all the way, 100%. Kind of like you're holding from going to the bathroom. And then release it to 30%, but you're keeping it engaged. And that 30% engagement is what we want to move through our practice with throughout the rest of the night. So, Bandha is a Ujjayi breath. That's what we're talking about. We're going to come into our sun salutations from our mountain pose. Inhale, swan dive, arms up overhead. Exhale, reverse swan, forward fold. Inhale to half lift, hands come to the shins, back is flat, gaze is lifted. Exhale to forward fold. Plant the hands, jump, step, or float back into plank. Option for a vinyasa here, a full chaturanga. Keeping hips off the mat, we take a high to low plank. We roll over our toes. Hips stay lifted the whole time. Shoulders stack over the wrists. We can come to a full extension in the arms because our hips are lifted. Roll back over the toes, downward facing dog. Gaze between the hands, jump, step, or float to your half lift. Exhale to forward fold. Inhale, reverse swan dive, arms up overhead. Exhale, hands through heart, Samastiti. We're going to do that 2 more times. Every time now I say you have a chance for vinyasa or chaturanga, it's of your choice at this point, all right? Of those 4 options. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, forward fold. Plant the hands, step back. Vinyasa of your choice. Meeting in downward facing dog. Gaze lifts, jump, step, or float to your half lift. Exhale to fold. Inhale, reverse swan dive, arms up. Exhale, hands through heart. Samastiti. Mountain pose. 1 more time. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, plant the hands, step back. Option of your own vinyasa. You could drop the knees. Take a big cobra. Downward facing dog to end. Gaze lifts, jump, step, or float to your half lift. Back is flat. Exhale to fold forward. Inhale, reverse swan dive. Exhale, hands through heart. Samastitihi. Finished with sun sal A. Moving into sun salutation B. Go ahead. I'm going to give you a moment here to just grab some water. Because I need water. You guys are troopers for masking it through this. It's an adjustment. All right, moving into sun salutation B. Standing for mountain pose at the top of the mat. Inhale, drop the hips, bring the arms up to frame the ears. We find Slight chair pose. Exhale to forward fold. Inhale, flat back, gaze lifts. Exhale, plant the hands, take a vinyasa of your choice. Exhale into your downward facing dog, meeting there. Planting the left foot, right foot steps forward. Lifting the upper body, rising up into warrior one. Knee stacked over ankle. Exhale, frame the foot, step back. Option of your own vinyasa here. You're going to get so tired of me saying this. Take a vinyasa. Meet in downward facing dog. Plant the right foot, left foot steps forward. Inhale to rise, warrior one. Back foot is planted, 45-degree. Exhale. Plant the hands. Take a vinyasa. We always have that gentle option. Remember, cat, cow to child's pose. Wherever you are, meet in a downward facing dog. We're going to take 5 breaths here. We tell you that downward facing dog is actually a resting pose. Nobody believes you until we get to vinyasa. Gaze to the top of the mat. Jump, step, or float. Half lift. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, chair pose. Exhale, mountain. We're going to do that again. Inhale to chair. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, plant the hands. Take a vinyasa. Wherever you are, meet in a downward facing dog. Left foot turns at a 45-degree angle. Right foot steps forward. Warrior one. We'll talk more about this soon, so don't worry about your placement. Exhale, plant the hands. Take a vinyasa. Meeting in a downward facing dog. Right foot plants at a 45-degree. Left foot steps forward. Arms come to frame the ears. Exhale, plant. Vinyasa of your choice. Meeting in downward facing dog. Gaze lifts. Jump, step, or float to your half lift. Exhale to fold. Inhale to chair. Exhale, hands through heart, mountain. We're going to do that one more time. This time we're going to do some creative stuff. So we'll slow it down a little bit. Inhale to chair. So here, our big toes may come together. Maybe they stay apart. We've got weight in our heels. Our knees are in line together as we sink our hips down. Back is flat, heart is lifted. Arms to frame the ears, or maybe to heart center. Exhale to fold. Inhale to half lift. Exhale, take a vinyasa. Downward facing dog. Plant that left foot, right foot steps forward as we find warrior one. So that back left foot is pivoted at a 45-degree angle. We've got a nice hip distance stance here, no tight ropes. Right knee is stacked over the right foot. Both of our hips are nice and square to the top of the mat. Arms to frame the ears. Or at hips or heart center, soften the shoulders away from the ears. Pivot that back foot so that it's parallel to the back edge of the mat. Arms come to a T. We find warrior two. We know our cues here. Can we see our big toes? And we soften the shoulders. Where's our gaze? And then from here, we're going to come into extended side angle. So just like I'm pulling a string at the edge of your fingers, keeping that front knee bent, I'm going to start to hinge forward, drop that right knee down to the, right elbow to right knee. Left arm comes down in front of the body as we windshield wiper it, framing our left ear with that left bicep. We're kind of pointing to where the wall and the ceiling meet with our finger. You're welcome to stay right here. If you'd like a little extra challenge, we could bring that left hand behind the back, grab the bind with that right arm through our leg, step that left foot to meet the right as we lift that right leg off, birds of paradise. Graceful with yourself tonight.
Is this it?
Yep. Then you just work on getting the extension through that lifted leg.
Oh, right.
Yep. Woo. Wherever you are, meet back in an extended side angle. Inhale, lift the upper body, rise up, reverse warrior. Exhale, frame that foot, plant the hands. Take a vinyasa or a child's pose, wherever you're at. And meet in downward facing dog. Planting the right foot, step that left foot forward. We find warrior one on this side. Hips are square to the mat, back foot at a 45-degree angle. That back heel stays planted. Front knee stacked over ankle. Soften the shoulders. Bring your feet in line. Exhale, arms to a T, warrior two. As we move into extended side angle on this time, hinge the fore. My words, I'm telling you. I had like broken English for a week. Hinging the fingers forward, drop that left hand to left knee. Left or right hand comes down in front of the body as we bring those fingers to face the ceiling, extending through the right side. You're welcome to stay right here. If you want to try that bind on this side, we could bring that right hand behind the back, left hand sews through that leg to meet the right, step the right foot forward. Just notice one side or the other, it might look very different.
Which leg is lifting? Left?
So the left leg lifts. Yes.
What am I doing wrong here? I just have a diaper on.
So get in your extended side angle again.
Okay.
So right hand is behind you, and it comes, and then left hand kind of comes down and through. So from behind.
360.
Okay. Wherever you are, meet in that extended side angle. Reverse warrior. Paint the sky with those fingers. Shelby's lingo. Exhale, plant the hands down. Take a vinyasa. When we get to our downward dog here, we are going to take a few breaths in that space. Gaze lifts as we jump, step, or float to the top of our mat. Arms up. Sorry, I'm like coming through chair again. Inhale to chair, exhale, hands through heart. Tadasana. Awesome work. Shake it out, grab some water. I missed a revolved chair twist in there, but it's fine. We'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. See how this vinyasa thing is gonna go. Oh yeah. I had 2 beers, but listen.
So we're going to meet in a downward dog, or you can take a vinyasa to get there. From downward facing dog, right leg lifts, back and up behind, gaze between the hands, step that right foot forward. Plant the back foot. Find some solid ground. Hands come to the hips. And slowly rise to standing. From here, we're kind of going into our balance portion now. Nice hip distance stance in our feet. Back foot is at a 45-degree angle. Front toes face the top of the mat. We could keep hands on the hips. We could bring hands to heart. We could also maybe clasp alternate elbows behind. Or maybe a reverse namaste. Wherever you are, that front leg stays extended with a slight micro bend. Inhale, lengthen to look forward. Exhale to fold over that front leg. Again, in vinyasa, we're always focusing on a flat back. So in hatha, we round. Vinyasa, we stay flat. So you might notice maybe we need to warm up those muscles a little bit more to really get our chest quite as close as we would have. Be graceful with yourself. Both hips are square to the top of the mat. Grounding through both feet. Inhale to rise back up. Engage the core in the back. Find a nice solid stance. Start to bring weight into that right foot. We're going to start to lift off of our left foot as we hinge forward, coming into warrior 3. You might do some toe taps here with that back foot. Option to bring a block in here under the hands. Micro bend through that right standing leg. Left leg is lifted, toes pointed down. Try to keep it in line with the body. Hands can be on a block, or maybe you start to bring them in front of the body. From the side here, we kind of look like a T. We've got the leg lifted. Maybe you even practice airplane arms. Exhale, go ahead and bring hands to the mat first, then let that back foot fall. Go ahead and take a vinyasa here. Meeting in downward facing dog. Take a couple breaths here to maybe notice any differences between the side bodies. Inhale, left leg lifts up. Gaze lifts as we bring that left foot forward through a lunge. And then hands come to the hips. Ground through both of those feet as we rise back up. Nice hip distance stance. If you have to shorten your stance here, that's all right. Back toes are at a 45-degree. Front toes towards the mat. Maybe hands are at the heart. Maybe you're clasping elbows behind. Maybe reverse namaste. Inhale, lengthen, look forward. Have we used our bandhas or our ujjayi breath? Coming back into that ocean breathing. Lengthen, And exhale to fold back, stays flat. As we sink that heart towards the leg. Both hips square to the top of the mat. Micro bend through the front leg, but for the most part, keeping it extended. Inhale to rise. Engage the core and the body. Release the hands. Shake it out. We're going to start to bring weight into that left foot. Stepping off of our right back leg. Hands to blocks or the mat. Right toes flexed, pointing down towards the floor. Micro bend in the left leg. Option for your full expression with arms out in front or airplane arms. Exhale, hands to the mat first. Then that right foot touches. Coming back through a lunge, plant the hands around the feet, step back and take a vinyasa. Meeting in downward facing dog. Starting to hinge forward into a plank pose, stacking shoulders over wrists. Toes can be tucked, making a nice slope of our body. So no mountains or valleys. Keep that gaze lifted out in front of your mat. And then dropping the right knee onto the mat and pivoting the right toes out to the side of the mat as we come into side plank. So one safety disclosure here, if you're having any shoulder issues, please always take the option with the knee down. We are putting a lot of weight and balance on that shoulder. So from here, pivot the left arch of the foot so that it's resting on the mat. Shoulders stacked over wrists, and open up our wingspan. The left fingers come to the sky. You're welcome to stay right here. If you want a little bit of an extra challenge, you could bring both feet together at the base of your mat. If you want even more of a challenge, you could work on lifting that top left leg, making a little star. Wherever you are, left hand comes back down to the mat. Set your knees and take a vinyasa. Downward facing dog. Inhale, hinge forward, back through a plank pose. Going to do the same thing on the other side, dropping the left knee, left toes pivot out. Careful with the shoulders here. Listen to your body. Shoulders stacked over wrists as we open up our wingspan. Right fingers come up to the sky. The arch of that right foot is planted at the base of your mat. Option to bring both feet together. Option to play with lifting the top leg. We always have options. We are in control of our own bodies. Take the option that best serves you tonight. Without judgment, without expectation. Give yourself some grace. We're learning. Exhale. Hands come back to the mat. Find your plank pose. Take a vinyasa. Downward facing dog. We meet here together. Gaze lifts. We're going to step our feet up halfway onto our mat and onto the outer edge of the mat. From here, sort of just like we're lifting one vertebrae at a time, find yourself in standing. So once we get to the top of our mat, well, we're not at the top of our mat, we're halfway through our mat. Our toes can be slightly out at a 45-degree angle, halfway. Hands come to heart. And just like we're sliding down a glass wall, we're going to start to come into a squat pose. If you can keep your heels on the ground, that's great. I've personally never been able to, so that's always fine too. Yeah, if you have to shorten your stance. Once we're here, our thumbs are in our sternum. Our elbows are pushing into our knees. Our back is flat, gaze is lifted. Again, another resting pose, if you can believe it. So we're going to go into a little bit of core work, and we're going to come into crow. So if that's not available to you or not in your practice, you're welcome to just stay right here in squat. Placing our hands down onto the mat, and then starting to just lift the hips and place the knees on the top of the tricep, almost like you're placing them in the armpits. Now, it's really important here. You might play with placing a block behind you if you want to practice just bringing your toes slightly up. Really important here, keep your gaze at the top of your mat. The second you look back, you're going to fall forward. So gaze stays lifted as we bring our weight onto our arms, lift one foot, maybe the other, into the full expression of crow. If you got crow down, and you want to practice side crow, you could bring both hands to the side of your mat. Let the hip fall on the right elbow, right knee fall on the left elbow.
Looks like breakdancing.
Options. Side crow. Yeah. So both hands come to the side of your mat. Back elbow is where your hips rest. Front elbow is where your knee rests.
Oh my God, that's so cool.
Yay. Options. If you did it on one side, maybe do that on the other. If you got into crow and you want to practice another cool transition here, from crow, shoot the legs back, take a vinyasa. Wherever.
The first time that I tried and I.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the time that you were like, what?
Really hard.
So wherever you are, take a vinyasa. And then go ahead and just find a nice, comfortable seat. Shake out your wrists a lot. Don't be surprised if the next day or two you're like, oh my God, my wrists. It's all right. One thing that can be helpful too is if you make little fists with your little thumbs down as a little pivoter. Obviously, you don't want to do that on like some postures, but on some where you're maybe on all fours or downward dog. So be easy on yourself. Self-grace tonight. That's our goal. Oh, it is just so hard to breathe. Sorry, guys. I'm trying here. Whew. All right. So we talked about bandhas, little bandhas. So go ahead and grab 2 blocks. So you might be like, oh, I don't know if I'm like really engaging my bandhas. Like, what's going on? So this little exercise is kind of cool. It helps us really focus on our bandha, and this is something you can do like while you're just watching TV, you know, just chilling. So from a cross leg, hands come to the blocks, and they're going to be kind of next to our hips. Maybe they're in the same direction as our thighs are facing. And go ahead and just push hands onto the blocks and lift your seat up. And then maybe try lifting one leg and then the other. And as we engage that pelvic floor, that's that Mula Bandha that we're really trying to focus on. Nice work. I sometimes struggle with the blocks being on their lowest setting, so I play with them up a little bit higher. So now hopefully you're kind of like, oh, there's my Mula Bandha. So I'm going to give you just a few breaths here to kind of play around with that. Like I said, it's kind of a fun thing to just start to work on. It just starts to kind of build that practice without 100 vinyasas while you're watching TV. All right. So when you're ready, shake it out, move those blocks. And we're going to find soles of feet on the mat in front of us, bend in the knees. We know this next one. Hands come behind that lower thigh. Hands hinge back onto our seat. Find that flat pad. Lift one, maybe the other. Into your boat pose. Find your expression. Back is flat, heart is forward, gaze is lifted. Exhale, bring the hands down. Go ahead and give yourself a hug. Inhale to neutral. For this next one, I'm going to incorporate a bind. So this, you might take your peace fingers and wrap around your big toe. I personally like to just grab my whole foot. In between the toes kind of freaks me out. So from here, we then practice finding that flat pad, extension with the bind. Making a little V with the body. Heart is forward. Back is flat. Exhale, feet together. There would be an option to take vinyasas like at multiple times throughout this, but I won't do. I'll give us a little bit of a break here. Coming into bound angle. So this is also known as like butterfly. So soles of feet together, kind of like you're reading a little book with your feet. And this can be different for you wherever you choose for your practice to be tonight. So if we pull our heels in as close as possible to our sit bones, we're really focusing on that inner groin and inner thigh. But if we actually went a little further out, we would be focusing on our low back and hips. So decide kind of what your intention for this posture is. Maybe play around with both. Read your little book here with your hands and your feet. Inhale to lengthen, spine is lifted, gaze forward. Exhale to fold. Maybe we hinge the elbows around the front of the shins. Again, flat backs. So we're keeping that heart forward. Just different intentions between the two practices. It's always obviously okay if you want to round your back. It's your own practice. But in the light of vinyasa, technically, that's what it would look like. And inhale. Go ahead and extend the legs, shake them out a little bit. Whew. All right. So extending through the right leg, left foot comes to the inner right thigh. Inhale, arms up overhead. Heart center over that extended leg. Exhale, fold halfway. Find some length on the inhale. Exhale, bring the hand to wherever it's comfortable. Keeping that back flat, gaze lifted. We are kind of really, doing a little bit more of engaging ourselves, pulling ourselves towards the body part. We're really coming to that edge. Inhale, rise up. We're going to take our left hand, lift that left knee, and we're going to make a fist and place our fist in between the foot and the knee. So we want that much distance between that planted left foot and the extended right leg. Inhale, arms up. Planting the right hand behind the back, thumb points down on our left hand. We start to fold forward, and when we get about halfway, we're going to swim that left arm around the left knee. It's okay if one of our sit bones is slightly lifted here. Inhale to lengthen, exhale to fold. If it's in your practice, you could try a bind here with that back right arm coming to meet those left fingers. You could always use a strap here on the bind too if you really want to practice it.
Is this for our shoulders? What do we bring?
Yeah, so it is sort of opening us up through the shoulders here. So yeah, keeping a flat back and keeping that heart forward. Release the bind. Inhale, both the hands come up. Left hand plants down behind the back. And exhale, right hand comes to hinge on that left knee. Arm can be bent or extended, gaze over the back shoulder. Inhale, untwist, arms through center, over neutral. Exhale, counter twist. If you'd like to try it, you could plant that right hand slightly behind your back. Finding wild thing pose as you lift up off your hips. Right leg is extended, left knee is still bent. Right shoulder stacks over right wrist. We kind of come into that like extended side angle look, but with our legs being a little different. You guys got it. Awesome. Exhale, bring those hands back down. Shake it out. We're doing that same thing on the other side. Left leg is extended, right sole foot comes to that inner left thigh. Inhale, both arms up. Exhale, halfway. Inhale, find length. Exhale, fold, flat back. Gaze lifted. Pull yourself towards that leg. One more breath. Inhale to rise. Lift that right knee. Find your fist distance between the foot and the knee. Neutral spine. Inhale, arms up. Left hand can come back behind the left sit bone. Right thumb points down. As we start to fold forward, swim that right arm around that lifted knee. You can come off that right sit bone if needed. The binds in your practice, maybe finding that here. Inhale to lengthen, exhale to keep folding forward. I'd recommend if you don't have the bind here, maybe practice this with a strap. Might help you engage those muscles that we're really trying to get into. Release that bind. Inhale, arms up overhead. Right hand plants behind the right sit bone, second spine. Exhale, left elbow hinges. Gaze over that back shoulder. Option for a bent or straight left arm. Inhale through center, arms up overhead. Counter twist. Option to plant root down through that left hand and find wild thing if that's in your practice. Lifting those hips off the mat. Bringing the arm overhead. Be careful with that shoulder, obviously. Exhale, return to the mat. Shake it out. Let's go ahead And find a downward facing dog. If you want to do that through a vinyasa, you're welcome to do that here. Wherever you are, we're meeting together in downward facing dog. On an inhale, right leg lifts back and up behind. Bring your gaze between the hands. As we exhale, we're setting up for pigeon pose. That right knee comes and plants right behind the right wrist. Go ahead and sit off to the side here for just a moment. Let's chat about a couple things. So the more parallel we keep our shin to the top of the mat, the more deep this stretches. If that's too intense, just go ahead and pull that heel in slightly towards your sit bones. You might like to pad one of your knees, your left knee, with a blanket. When you're ready, go ahead and square back up over the mat. Big safety cue here is that we're keeping the right toe flexed into the mat to protect that knee. You might also like to place a block under the right hip here. It's really important that we keep a nice level hip. From here, with our toes flexed, we could keep our hands under our shoulders, or we could start to fold down, bringing our head to the mat or a block. This is some deep hip opening work. So come back to that intention of self-grace. Notice how you feel. And really just focus on bringing that breath in, clearing any stagnant and stuck energy, and releasing it in whatever form it shows itself. Maybe it's a cleansing breath. Maybe it's a tear, whatever you need. We release a lot of things in this posture. If you'd like, you could come all the way down, maybe bring the forehead to a block here. We've potentially got a prop underneath that, a blanket underneath the left knee, a block underneath the right hip. And then as far as our upper body goes, maybe coming to a block or a blanket or a bolster. You could even bring your forehead to the mat and extend your arms overhead. But yes, we are kind of resting on our forearms or our elbows here a little bit. Two more breaths. Bringing the hands back under the shoulders. Tuck the left toes, lift the hips, send that right leg back. And take a vinyasa. Shake it out here a little bit, whatever you need. Find some movement. Meeting all together back in a downward facing dog when you're there. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. Left leg lifts back and up. Gaze comes to the top of the mat. Exhale. Left knee comes behind left wrist. Set yourself up here, however deep you need to be in this, depending on how parallel your shin is. Flexing that big toe into the mat. Using props here as you need. And getting back into your full expression of this pose, understanding it may look different on one side and the other. So Kate, you might also play with just kind of bringing your elbows out even a little bit further, and it might help your heart sink a little closer to the mat. Totally just an option. The breath comes in. It swirls down into that hip. We exhale out any sticky, stuck energies. Anything that no longer serves us. Making room for self-grace. 3 more breaths. Inhale, bring those hands back under the shoulders, tuck the right toes, lift the hips, shake it out here. And from here, we're going to come down onto our bellies. Take a little break, turn one cheeky to the mat. Inhale, bringing chin to center, lifting the shoulders up slightly off of our mat. Sorry, you guys can't really see me here. We can clasp our hands maybe behind our back as we lift the shoulders up off the mat, and maybe the toes even start to lift too. So we're kind of on our thighs, feet are pointed. You might notice some rocking with the breath, that's all right. Exhale, other cheek to the mat, release back down. For our next option, as we inhale, chin to the center. This option, you could take that first one. This second option, you could lift your front hip, place your palm underneath the front hip facing down. Forearms come under the body. Do that on both sides.
Palms facing up and down.
Palms are facing down. And then you lift your hips, yep, and they kind of go place right underneath your front hip bones. We're going to do that same thing. Lift the chest, and this time really try to lift those legs back and up. Toes are pointed. So we're engaging those glutes, low back. It's a little different. See the faces. Exhale, release. Whew. Take a break.
Okay. What is that called, Lindsay?
Locust. From here, we're going to bring our elbows underneath our shoulders into Sphinx pose. So the closer our elbows are into our ribs, the deeper of a back bend this is. We could always walk them out a little bit further away from us. We want to have our fingers spread wide, forearms on the mat. And we're really grounding down into this. So we're pushing into our elbows as our shoulders and our head lift up out. And we're pulling on the mat just slightly, that you're almost trying to ripple the mat underneath you, but we're not going to let it move. That's how engaged those fingers are. Toes can be untucked. Soften the shoulders, soften the gaze. From here, we're going to move into dolphin pose. So you might play with doing this with a block if you want to bring that in as a prop potentially. Tucking the toes under, and we're going to start to just play with lifting our hips and coming back into a forearm plank. Lifting our hips and coming back into a forearm plank. Maybe we bring a block in between the hands here. Just start to do a couple of these dips. And then when you're ready, we're going to make a TP. We're going to start to downward dog, walk it in a little bit more. This is a great pose to maybe help us start strengthening for a shoulder or a handstand. Walking those feet further in. Hands could be on the blocks, could be on the mat. Exhale, drop the knees, find a child's pose. It's okay if your shoulders and wrists are screaming. They'll get in shape. We're gonna do one back bend before we start our cool down. So go ahead and find your back. We could always do bridge as a slight inversion too if we wanted. So we are going to play with fish. So legs are extended, toes can be pointed, lift the hips up, and just sit on your hands, palms facing down. Elbows are on the mat. We're starting to walk those elbows in. Our heart is lifted and forward. And then dropping our head so that just the top of our head comes down to touch the mat. We want to keep most of our weight in our elbows, so we're not putting a ton of weight on the top of our head, but it is touching the mat. Heart is lifted here. Toes are relaxed or pointed. Another thing you could try would be like a supported bridge, or I'm sorry, a supported fish, where you bring your shoulders back through this block and rest your head on another block. And that could maybe kind of help you get that back bend. So when you're ready to come out of this, tuck the chin first, and then make your way using your core. And go ahead and just come all the way down onto your back. Hugging the knees into the chest. Take a little rock, maybe massage that low back. Option to take happy baby here. Grabbing those outer edges of the feet, pulling the knees down into the armpits. Meeting with knees in the heart space, arms to a T as we find our supine twists. Letting the knees fall to one side, gaze can be at the ceiling, or maybe you let it fall over the opposite shoulder. Engage the core, knees through the heart space, gaze to center, and drop to the other side. Gaze to center, knees through the heart space. 5 breaths here for any last minute poses that are calling to you before we relax into our final Shavasana. If you'd like, for Shavasana, you could maybe find a Supta Baddha Konasana, which is maybe soles of feet together, letting those knees fall out to the side. You could even place some blocks under the knees. Or if you'd like to just find a traditional Shavasana, maybe a bolster under the knees, cover yourself with a blanket, dim the lights, get cozy, get comfy. Using this final time to maybe even stay with that Ujjayi breath and keep that focus on your breath throughout the next few minutes. Or maybe coming back to that intention of self-grace. We've absorbed and done a lot of new things tonight. But we have so much more time for practice. So just give gratitude to what your body was able to show up and do today. An acknowledgement, compassion for the growth that can still occur. I'll leave you in silence here until it's time to come out. Slowly starting to find some movement in the body. Wiggling hands and toes. Maybe finding movement in the neck. Maybe with an overhead stretch. When you're ready, rolling to one side. Using the bicep as a pillow. making your way to seated at the top of your mat when you're ready. Meeting with hands at heart center. Take a moment and give gratitude to yourself with 3 cleansing breaths. Gratitude that your body is able to be here. Gratitude for your breath. Gratitude for your spirit. Coming back to that intention of self-grace. How will you give grace to yourself today for the rest of your week? What do you need to do for yourself? Are you creating that space in your life? Letting go of the thoughts and expectations of what we think we could and should do. And just give gratitude for the way that we show up. Remembering that the true benefits of your practice here today begin the moment that you step off of your mat. Closing class together with Om Shanti, taking a cleansing breath to Om. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Bringing the thumbs up to the third eye. The teacher, the student, the light and love in me honors the teacher, the student, the light and the love in each of you. Namaste.